You're listening to Lone Star Community Radio on 104.5 KCZWLP Conroe and 106.1 KZCCLP Conroe and worldwide on irlonestar.com.
Good afternoon and welcome to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I'm Cheryl, are two Texas licensed attorneys, and we're here every Tuesday from 12 to 1 on irlonestar.com and FM 106.1 and 104.5 to answer your legal questions. We talk about legal topics, anything that we're dealing with our clients or that we get questions about. You can send us your questions at questions@legalconnectionshow.com. And you can also watch us live on Facebook right now. I think they have to like us, and then we'll come up, and you can watch us live. And you can send us your questions that way. Yeah, you have to like us. And you can send us your questions that way. So last week we were talking about homeowners associations, and we just kind of felt like we needed to do a wrap-up on that.
Yes.
And discuss it some more.
Really also because after last week, I got 4 or 5 calls from people that were listening to the show that had questions and were experiencing in their own, situations. They wanted to hire me to help them out, and I'm really a little bit overloaded right now, so I'm going to give them to you.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
I think you're overloaded too. but anyway, they had a lot of questions, so we want to answer the questions that they had also. But before we get started, I have a couple of questions for you.
Okay.
One is that, did you know that today is the memorial of the Guardian Angels Day?
No,
in the Catholic Church.
No,
it's not a feast, but so all of the dialogue was about guardian angels. And so my first question for you is, have you ever had any experience with guardian angels personally?
Yes, I have.
And I guess, did you, was it a life-death experience? Or?
No. I've had a few instances where I felt like I saw my guardian angel and communicated with them.
Yeah. Well, all I can tell you is I know I have a guardian angel, and that person is probably our entity, because I don't think, at least in the Catholic faith, they're not guys or girls. He's working overtime.
I believe
he or she's working overtime all the time, because I'm just like, help me, guardian angel. Okay, my next question is just a question that you are going to know the answer to, because I was reading the readings this morning, and it was talking about Job and about how God just loved him, and that the devil and him were talking, and that so the devil decided to test him by basically ruining his life in every way, everything but his life.
Right.
And so basically, after the devil took out his family and his welfare and all the things that happened to him that were so bad,
Yes.
and he was still, supported and loved God with all of his might. What happened next? I didn't get to that part. So after the devil took, what's the end of the story?
Well, the middle part of the story is that he's got these 4 friends. Friends, you can't see me unless
Yeah,
you're
they
watching.
keep up. They keep showing
on
up.
YouTube in quotation marks. He's got these friends
That show up because they didn't get annihilated, right?
and because they hear this story of poor Job, he lost not all that, but he also lost his reputation. And it's shown in the counsel of his friends.
How did he lose his reputation?
Counsel of his friends. Well, because they came and started saying, Job, look, you're not being honest with yourself. You did something wrong. You did something bad. You're living in a
sort
dream
of
world.
Kavanaugh-esque,
Yeah.
Okay.
Or this wouldn't be happening. And Job defended himself. And a lot of that interaction between he and these 4 friends were Job saying, no, you're wrong. The way that you think about God and the way that you look at life with your own eyeballs is a tit for tat, and that's not what's going on here. I'm innocent. I don't deserve this. God is my judge. And so in the end, God shows up in the book of Job. God shows up, and he challenges Job and basically says, Job, let me ask you some questions since you know everything. You've been talking a long time. Let me ask you some questions. And Job said, I repent in dust and ashes. I've spoken, and I should have never said a word.
Uh-huh. I
You're
don't know everything.
Yeah.
It's all you.
And so God restored Job, gave him double of everything he had, except for he didn't give him twice as many kids. He gave him the same exact amount of kids that he had. But Scripture's interesting. Scripture says specifically that I think he had 3 boys and 3 girls. The 3 girls were the most beautiful girls. And do you know one of Job's daughters' name translates mascara?
Really?
Yeah. Little tidbit
appropriate.
of information. Yeah. That's not too bad for a cold question, huh, Tony?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, I knew you'd know the answer because that's your thing, and you've written the books on it and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I just didn't know that. I didn't know what happened to him. So
He was
basically, everything was
restored.
going great, and then the devil said, "I'm going to test him," and then God said, "I'm going to test him." And basically, when Job came around to saying, "I don't know anything, you know everything, and it's all because of you," then God gave him double. So I'm going to say that today.
That's
I
what
don't know
happened.
anything.
Mhm.
I'll
And he
just
knows
wait
everything.
patiently for
Right.
double.
Right. Well, Tony, you and I were talking last week about homeowners association
Yes.
after the show, and I just want to reiterate. I think that you said it in the show, but I just want to say it more specifically
Mhm.
on the topic of homeowners associations. That the primary goal of a homeowners association is to protect the interest of the homes that belong to that association.
Yes.
Not to think about the development across the street
Mhm.
or the commercial strip mall
If
or
the
whatever.
Kroger's coming in and giving a lot of money to somebody that's on the board or maybe the association, they're not a part of it.
That's right. And they're to ensure that our property values in our neighborhood
Right.
grow,
Mhm.
stay the same, don't lessen.
Protect and enhance the property in the neighborhood
Right.
and make sure that the community's wishes are met, not the community next door, the development next door, the building next door,
Not
whatever.
to become
right?
politicians and
Mhm.
intimidated by, whoever down the street, some
Mhm.
home builder,
Right.
whatever,
Right.
but to protect the interest of the homes in their
Right.
association.
And that's usually in the declarations. It's just that it's a little side thing, and that no one goes back to that being the purpose of your homeowners association is a community of people that have contracted together so that their homes can be their property is enhanced or at least maintained. And then they've gone crazy though. I mean, with all the lectures,
Yeah, no kidding.
all of
And then
that's
all the
been bad.
dues and all the power and stuff like that. But the example that you gave last week about Tanglewood, I
Mhm.
thought was a really good example. You said that it wasn't a really fancy
No,
shanty.
growing up, I remember my friends lived on Tanglewood, in Tanglewood, and
Mhm.
it where I lived was Brayburn Country Club Estates and Sharpstown Estates. We had much nicer houses, in my opinion. We were like the snobby area,
Right.
and then the Tanglewood was just another. They were just the people that went to that school, Lee. They just and I think Tanglewood, a lot of them went over to Lamar too. But the people that when I was in junior high, that group. The people that were zoned kind of close to Lee also lived in the Tanglewood area. And it wasn't all that. It was just a regular subdivision. It wasn't
But
anything
thanks
special.
to their homeowners association building walls and protecting the value, they actually enhanced the value
Right.
and made it a really
When they bonded, and just like they say in the Bible, when there were many parts and now we are all one body, when the group of homeowners bonded and had strength as one, like we did as a nation. That's why in the Civil War we were successful in becoming the best country in the world, because we bonded as one and we were able to use our gifts and share them with each other. So that being said, what Tanglewood did was they went in and they were being overtaken by these major thoroughfares, San Felipe and Westheimer, all of these they were expanding the roads. They were doing all the stuff that was basically invading their little community. And they bonded together and they put it together. They got deed restrictions. They got walls put up, beautiful walls that bordered it. They made it so that to live here was special.
Mhm.
And of course, now as the story goes, my friends that live there, the Osteens lived next door to one of my best friends for
Yeah.
just not too long ago.
Uh-huh.
And so we know it must have been pretty special.
Mhm.
And that's where they chose to live
Right.
with all God's graces. So anyway, yeah, now it's wonderful. So that
because
is
of the
reason.
homeowners
Mhm.
association.
So a lot of people want to disband their homeowners association
I know.
because they're so frustrated. And a lot of the people that I spoke with that even called me this week were trying to see what they could do about completely disbanding it. What can they do in their bylaws to make it go away? Because they didn't have the free use of their land,
Right.
and they didn't even. It was nitpicky stuff, just ridiculous little things that. Now some of the people called did have some issues. I mean, they had like dump sites basically on
their property,
and everyone could see it. I mean, there is some. They do have a plus side for sure. I mean, you want to be able to control that owner that's got a nuclear waste dump site, in their backyard, and everybody can see it because it's open. It borders a lake or a park or whatever.
Right.
But on the other hand, it has to always be reasonable. What is going on needs to comply with the purpose and be reasonable, and that's where these homeowners associations go astray, and you get people that don't want to live. They literally will move from the area because they can't deal with it.
Exactly.
And when you get into these lawsuits, I want to call it protracted litigation. The only people that win are the attorneys.
Lawyers, right?
Because one little lawsuit, whereas you can win and the attorney's fees may be gained, you may prevail on it, they may not. It may be, there may be nobody prevails on it, but ultimately the stress that everyone goes through while they're going through a lawsuit, whether it's owner to owner or association to owner or whatever it may be,
It's terrible.
really breaks apart your community. So you need to try to avoid that when possible.
Mhm.
And a lot of it goes to the character and the disposition and the skill set of the board, which are just a few people.
So true.
And so that's why we have a lot of problems. Now, again, I know a lot of the people that are on the board in the Tanglewood Association, and they are good people. They've got, just a million years together, I think, in business experience alone, and always very reasonable, and they own companies and all that stuff. And they've volunteered to be on that board, but man, they've got it going on. I mean, their restrictions are something else. I use them as a model. So that being said, we're going to go over some things that we're going to identify some of the problems. That's where we left off last show. And then we're going to show how you can combat that in whatever your situation may be.
Okay, well, we're going to take a break right now, and we will be back. You can voicemail us your questions, too, at 281-529-5862, and we'll be right back with a legal connection after the break.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Statistics show that 1 out of every 6 Texans struggles with food insecurity and hunger. And many people don't eat enough fruits and vegetables every day. The Better Living for Texans program is here to help you learn how to make healthy menu choices, save money at the grocery store, prepare quick and delicious meals, get more good nutrition in your day, and get more physical activity. Classes are fun, friendly, interactive, and free, and taught in English and Spanish. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your questions. Get seen on TV, YouTube, and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Support your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
For those of you who like your partners, your gumbo, and your music salty, well, we're here to help with the music. Julian Shea here, host of Lone Star Country Nights Thursday, your weekly dose of roots and Americana and all the music that makes this part of the country special. We stir in Western swing, honky-tonk, Zydeco, Texas blues, outlaw country, and put a pinch of red dirt, and then we smoke it over a slow fire. Then listen to the results Thursday nights on Conroe's 104.5 and 106.1 and worldwide at irlonestar.com.
What can the Better Living for Texans program do for you? You can learn how to increase your consumption of fruits and vegetables, choose foods that are relatively inexpensive and good to eat, make your food dollars last longer, prepare quick, nutritious meals, help your children learn how to eat healthier snacks, and much more. Our program is committed to helping people like you improve your health through providing research-based nutrition education in a friendly, cost-free, and relaxed environment. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here today talking again about homeowners associations. And, we were just discussing the value that homeowners associations have if they focus
And
their
the power.
attention. Yeah. If they focus their attention on the association
Right,
that's
right.
under their governance.
And no, don't overgovern like a Nazi, and don't undergovern like, I guess like Venezuela. I don't know. Venezuela might be not. I mean, I don't know enough about their government, but
Or think you're just a politician now and you need
if you
to.
overgovern, then you make everyone's life miserable, like
Yeah.
having, like your Cinderella, the stepchild, and your Cinderella in the Wicked Witch's house or whatever.
Yeah.
Because people don't buy their property. They believe that they're going to get free use. It's never something when you're buying a home, because I've sold. I'm a real estate broker. I've sold a lot of homes. People don't think that they're going to be restricted. They're thinking, oh, I love this home. Look how beautiful it is.
Right.
They're not thinking about, well, I don't have, I don't have free use of this land. You'll have free use of your land if you go out in the country and there's no utilities and it's not developed and you buy a big chunk and you're on your own.
Mhm.
And there's a lot of risk involved for that. Like another friend of mine lives out close to Corpus Christi. And she was telling me that she was getting ready to buy some land behind her that she had done a contract for deed for a number of years ago. And I was like, oh, that's so great. I'm like, I said, you're just moving on up. I knew her in high school. And she said, she goes, no, it's really bad because the surrounding land, which is there's hundreds of acres, was sold to a corporation like DuPont. And she said, now the whole thing's industrial.
Oh,
She said they're
no.
buying the extra land so they can protect their little cubby of land. And she said, it's nothing like we expected. It was devastating. We went out to the country to get away from deed restrictions, to get away from, being, built on top of. And what happened was we were not too far off a main highway, but far enough that they were secluded. But then I don't want to say it's DuPont, but I forgot what the one it was. So they came in and now it's industrial. And she said, it's nothing what we had expected. And I was just like, I think what they're buying was maybe 30 acres around them, which sounds like so much, and it really is, but not when you've got, smokestacks and,
No.
industry.
Right.
So their dream got quashed. So there's a good side and a bad side to going out and buying land. You take a risk.
That's right.
And so a subdivision gives you that safety because you
Mhm.
know what's going to be around you. But on the other hand, if you buy into a subdivision and you believe or you relied upon that developer or the people before you telling you that, the state park behind you is going to remain a state park, or
Mhm.
the forest behind you will always be a forest, and then it's cut back, or Kroger comes in or a gas station comes in, you've really like in situations where there something I looked into recently was whether the county can widen the road, and how eminent domain kicks in, and when they can condemn your property and when they can't. There's a lot of that going on in Austin right now for a couple of my clients, and basically you do have some way to prevent your the state from coming in and condemning your property. There's some loopholes in it, but it's
Mhm.
difficult when they want to do it, particularly when the state's involved. When it's not unannexed city land, or if it's if it's already a dedicated road and it's been there for a number of years, you've got a lot of state laws that protect you, because the laws are really designed to help the little guy, even though when they're written, the legislatures, a lot of them aren't attorneys, and
Right.
they get these things passed, and they've got like what do they call the people that come in and they promote their interests?
Lobbyists.
Lobbyists. Yes, the
Mhm.
lobbyists come in and do their thing.
Mhm.
Then you don't know what's going to end up in that what the legislative intent was may not end up what's being in the statute, which is part of what we're going to talk about today, because a lot of times those statutes, in any case, not just real estate or anything like that, the statute may say one thing, but that wasn't the intent, and it's ambiguous, or there's a problem with the way it's that they didn't consider when they wrote it, and it needs to be changed, and that's what lawyers are for.
Mhm.
So, but it just takes time to get it all
It
perfect.
sure does.
Truly, the best and only laws that you can really rely upon are those 10 Commandments, in my opinion.
Right.
But we can't
Those
live
are
like that
clear.
right now.
Uh-huh.
Those are the ones that came from the divine. Okay, so identifying problems with your homeowner. Some of the problems that come up, because some people may not even know what I'm talking about, because they have a beautiful homeowners association.
Right.
They've never had any problems. I've been a member of a board, and we never had any problems.
Yeah.
We just did it. We were
Mhm.
like, let's just look. It was reasonable, and we were
Mhm.
volunteers, and we didn't want any problems, and
Mhm.
everybody kind of cooperated. So I never really ran into this at all, and I guess more so now that I'm an attorney. But anyway, as you investigate your homeowners association, it may be helpful to know some common problems that others have encountered with their homeowners associations, and these include assessment abuses. I get calls on that all the time. Assessments increased more than the covenants allow.
Right.
Assessment collections far exceeding a reasonable need.
Yeah.
Because maybe somebody on the board or maybe somebody that knows the board decides we want to do something, and then you get stuck with this assessment.
Right.
And it wasn't, maybe the vote wasn't, done properly. Maybe it wasn't voted on at all. It just happened.
Right.
Those deed restrictions are hard to read a lot of times, particularly when there's so many filed because subdivisions are, pretty old and they're renewed improperly because they
Mhm.
really wasn't an amendment that was properly done. The vote was not done properly, or the agreement wasn't done properly. So you need to look at that. We need to, if you feel like you've been wronged there, you need to look at, or have an attorney help you look at your bylaws
Mhm.
and your covenants and the history of it all and the use. And so we're going to get into all that. A single assessment increase using several years of accumulated percentage increases. For an example, rules often limit an annual increase to a certain percentage over the prior year. Some homeowners associations claim a right to increase assessments in 1 year using the unused increases from the prior year. This
Brother.
method could lead to a single increase exceeding 100%. So they can't. I can't say they can't do that, but more than likely, there's a lot of statutes out there right now in the Texas Property Code that protect homeowners. There may be a statute that makes that provision, if it does exist, void, and a lot of them do. For an
Mhm.
example, the solar panels. Now
Mhm.
you can put solar panels in. That's void if it's in there. You can have your flags in your front yard.
Mhm.
If it says your homeowners association that you can't have it, void.
Yes.
Because and it doesn't make all of them void. It makes that particular provision, the statute, void. Some
Mhm.
things make all of them void, but on these particular statutes, it says this provision will be void.
Mhm.
And there's some other ones that apply, but those are the first ones that came to mind. Rain barrels. We have a rain barrel in our backyard, but we're not permitted from having that. Love my rain barrel. It's got flowers and stuff in it. It's just so cute.
Mhm.
Okay. Management company and attorney abuses. An unreasonable number of liens or lawsuits against owners. For example, a homeowners association may represent the will of the neighborhood. If in the last 5 years, your homeowners association has filed liens against 20% of your neighbors, there's a problem.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's not the will of the neighborhood. If 20% of the people are getting hit with, because that's fundraising.
Yeah.
With 20% of the people.
Mm.
What percent below that might still represent a problem is a matter for you and your neighbors to decide, not the board.
Mhm.
You and your neighbors can go through and get it changed, but it may take a little bit more work because you have to understand how to do it. That protocol is really important.
Right.
Now, the next thing could be squeezing money from homeowners by threats of lawsuits and attorney's fees. And that could be the person that is that has an alleged violation, or it could be another person that has an alleged violation, and they're threatening the rest of the group, sort of like I guess the Nazis did, saying if you don't cooperate, we're going to blow your country away. And then France and all the smaller countries, or I guess not France, that's a larger country, but some of the smaller countries in Europe, not knowing my World War history as I should, they just said,
They just
go ahead
catered. Mhm.
go ahead and take, the city's yours, but don't take my church down, and don't take my home
Right,
and
that
my
was
children.
France. France
and they
did that.
and they gave up.
yeah. Didn't even
and
fight.
then we had to come in and fight.
Yeah.
That's the last resort, because look what happened. So many lives were lost. But in terms of the quality of your life, that can happen too if you get into a situation where there's a dispute. But it may be that the dispute is one that needs to be heard.
Well, so how does that apply to the homeowners association, though? You're saying that the association acted like the Nazis, and
Yeah, because and maybe even not even with a bad meaning to do it.
right,
But
Just
they're
acted
just
like a
by
bully.
contacting the homeowner's attorney, by going to that attorney for every tiny little thing.
oh, I see.
They're just almost as though it's like blackmail.
Mhm.
They're going through, and that cost gets spread out to the homeowners.
right.
And now these people that hadn't expected, they were just living their life.
Mhm.
Now they're caught into this conundrum, and they don't know what's the best thing to do. They're feeling like, I'm helpless.
Mhm.
This is out of control, and the best thing to do is be quiet. When that may not be the case, you can get control over this
right.
because it's for the community's best interest, not
right.
one person in the community decides what the best interest is. That may,
Right.
or maybe a few people that are vocal.
Mhm.
That's like in the Kavanaugh hearings when that one girl came to Mr. Flake, Senator Flake,
Mhm.
and it's senator or congressman. I can't remember.
He's a senator.
Senator.
That was the Senate
Yeah,
committee.
see, yeah, you're doing it better than I was. I was working, but
Mr.
and then
Flake the Flake.
he said that he was going to confirm Kavanaugh, and then he's caught in the elevator by a girl saying, "You don't care about me, you don't care," and he didn't know anything about her, but she was basically what I understand was she was a lobbyist or somebody that was supporting her position, and it changed his mind because she was loud, she was vocal, she was emotional. She caught him at a moment where he was up for election and he didn't want to, he didn't want to look bad, and it changed the whole environment of what happened.
No
Anyway,
comment.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So the next one is a delegation of power to an attorney or management company to sue owners. That management company and the attorney for the association they don't even live there.
Yeah, no kidding.
More than likely they don't live there. I guess as a board member they do. But they did, they probably would not want that cost passed on to them. There would be a bigger savings. Okay. Indemnification of the attorneys and the management company so that owners pay for the bad acts of the management company. So why is this a problem? Indemnification of the attorneys and the management company so the owners pay. In other words, I'm going to hire an attorney and a management company, but you're not liable. And then there's a lawsuit and the homeowners association loses because they didn't give them good advice. But the attorney doesn't have any problems. They collected their money. The management company doesn't have any problems. They collected their money. And even the board members, for the most part, are presumed
immune.
reasonable and they're okay too. So what happens to the community?
Yeah, they have to pay the cost.
Yeah, so you better be really careful about who your attorney is and who your management company is because and this is prevalent. That's why this is just a law review article. Basically, it happens all the time. So you need to kind of as a group. We are many parts, but we are all one body. That applies to God or divine our divine being, and it also applies to us in many other situations. We can transfer that same logic.
Absolutely. Well, listen, we're going to take another break right now. When we come back, we'll continue our discussion on the legal connection about homeowners associations.
Does volunteering at a nonprofit horse sanctuary sound wonderful? Or are you a veteran or a veteran spouse and think trying a peer group session through a local Horses and Heroes equine program might be worth trying? Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary, located in Grand Central Park by appointment only, is home to a growing number of rescued and donated horses. Visit our website at henryshomehorsesanctuary.org or check out our Facebook at Henry's Home Horse and Human Sanctuary for more information.
The Texas A&M AgriLife Extension Service has been dedicated to educating Texans for over a century. In 1915, the Extension Program was established under the federal Smith-Lever Act to deliver university knowledge and agricultural research findings directly to the people. Ever since, AgriLife Extension programs have addressed the emerging issues of the day, serving diverse populations across the state. Texans turn to Extension for solutions in horticulture, agriculture, 4-H and youth, and family and consumer sciences. Extension agents respond not only with answers, but also with resources and services that result in significant returns on investment to boost the economy. Join us Fridays at 1 o'clock for the AgriLife Extension Hour.
A Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776 to take your first step into the radio world.
Our talk shows and music shows are looking for sponsors. Want to expand your brand awareness? Reach the hyper-local audience in Montgomery County? Lone Star Community Radio sponsorships accomplish this. Want to see our stats and rates? Check out irlonestar.com/sponsor for more information. Or call in and leave us a message at 936-647-3776 with your questions. Get seen on TV, YouTube, and heard on our podcast, FM, and internet radio. Support your local radio station with Lone Star Community Radio.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony, we were talking about homeowners associations and some things to be wary
Yes,
of.
it's the laundry list of things that you need to be aware of, but you don't know that could happen. So you do want to look before you buy if there's any question about, talk to the neighbors around the house you're
Right.
buying. And even if you're in one right now, knowledge is power. Just by law, I think it's the Texas Property Code 209.005, and that it was passed, I think, in 2011, but they enhanced your ability to get the records to look at them. And there should be no cost. You should just have the opportunity to review them, not get copies, not bug them, not be out of the way. But you want to look to see kind of what's going on. Just take a look. I mean, if you don't know what's going on in an older community and you wonder why there's a lot of houses up for sale, it could be that. It might not
That's
be.
right.
Or it could be something else. You want to look. Maybe there's a pipeline or something.
Well, I think you sort of touched on this, the last point that you were making, and I think it's sort of an underlying theme through all of this discussion about knowing your homeowners association and how litigious they are, how they treat the homeowners. In America with law, we believe that the legal system says don't sit on your rights. If you sit on your rights, you don't get to exercise them.
Exactly right.
And don't be afraid.
Even though it's comfortable to sit on your rights.
It is. It's comfortable, but I think that's part of the problem and why some homeowners in different neighborhoods get beat up on and bullied.
But, you have to pick your battle. Something might be too small to really argue about.
Right.
But something may be really important.
Right.
And there's so many different examples. I can't even give you one right now, but I guess the big one would be if you've got somebody that's creating a nuclear waste dump site in the front yard and it's unseemly and, it's dangerous and, all those things. That's one thing. But that you also get the city involved on that because they're going to have ordinances and codes. And no matter where you live, even the state's got, statutes against something like that.
Right.
So when you're just talking about, curb appeal and the community kind of being the same, like with Tanglewood, or River Oaks, you can get an association where it enhances the values. Now, I know from reading a lot of cases that involve the River Oaks Property Owner Association as well as West University and they get nitpicky about the most ridiculous things.
Yeah.
But they've got so much money that I guess it doesn't matter. They can fight it. But on the upside, when they fight it, they do ultimately set law for the little people to be able to follow through. So it makes it easier for them to make sure you can get through what the community's desires are. And it also makes it so that the community desires as well as the protocol of how to do it. And so a lot of things happen when these, people that do have the money to fight the little things, you got to start somewhere.
Right.
So anyway, more problems you need to look for. Payment of bounties to attorneys to the management company. We covered that. And an example is creating incentives for attorneys and management companies to create disputes rather than treat the owners as neighbors. And this, unfortunately, is prevalent where the attorney is like, well, let's just do this. And they're guiding the board or, the management company one way, all the while knowing that guidance is just going to keep money coming in their pocket because now a dispute has arisen between an owner, an association, or an owner to an owner. And that money gets, the attorney's getting money in his pocket because he's keeping the dispute going.
Right.
It doesn't happen a lot, but it does happen. Or this wouldn't be something that's been named in like this, this publication I'm reading.
Right.
Homeowners can improperly create late payments, waiting months before cashing a check, not accepting payment, sending a bill to the wrong address. And that doesn't happen very often, but it can in some of the ones that are a little bit less, scrupulous. Foreclosing when the majority of the property owners disapprove. If somebody's having a bad time of it because someone died, they're having a hardship, maybe they don't agree with what's been assessed. If the majority opinion is that this person should be left alone, but the homeowners association has taken over like a bad train out of, running out of control, the HOA engages in foreclosures that's not representative of the neighborhood, that's completely wrong, and it happens. And a lot of case law is still happening, even with all the statutes that we have in place now. It still goes on. Now they've got in the Texas Property Code 209 has been they try to enact some prophylactic measures so that the homeowners that are in these kind of situations are more protected. But they still a lot of people don't know about it, and they still go on, and homeowners don't know that. They were almost afraid to hire an attorney because it's going to cost them and they may lose.
Right.
They're just like, let's just, God would admit to happen. No, God wants you at some point to, like with Jacob, to fight back, But you got to pick and choose your battles too, because your homeowners are going to get sucked into this vortex.
Right.
Foreclosing against the down on their luck, which I was just talking about. These are times when neighbors should offer help. These are not times when you should add to someone's burdens. Foreclosure for trivial reasons. We've seen foreclosure filings for a dollar debt, an oil stain in the driveway, to recover attorney's fees only, not even an assessment debt. 2 or 3 foot disagreement about a placement of a lamppost, a window unit or air conditioner where other homes had window units and the owner had orders from his doctor that he needed a window unit. These are all real cases that I read. This is just ridiculousness. Another is excessive management fees and attorney's fees. You should be able to put a stop to it. And if you see your board running out of control and asking their attorney, if they can, have a cheeseburger for dinner, anything it may be, then you might want to look a little bit more closely about that at your next meeting that they have. Now, abuses take the power away from the owners. We know this. This is just like in war, right?
Right.
Creating new deed restrictions or similar rules without a vote by the owners or an agreement from the owners it can be done by the board many times, and it may not be. It may not show what the community wants because they haven't asked anybody. Now, if you've gone out and asked everybody, and then that's a different story.
One thing, right?
Okay, that's the grassroots. You know what they want. It's another thing when there's a sham vote, like when the board has changed the bylaws improperly to say that we have a forum when 5% of the people are here. There's only 5 people there that are ever there because people are laissez-faire about going to the meetings. And then they're passing these amendments and sticking them in the bylaws and filing them of record so it looks like they're real, and they're not. They are simply not proper. They're not they're not properly in the these rules and regulations that they're saying are the ones that are being enforced. Have simply not properly been passed, and so they are not. That's a defense that you go, and that's what a case that I was reading about in River Oaks, where there was amendments passed, and they're 10 years ago, and they're relying upon them, and the amendments didn't have the votes. They got some votes, but they didn't get the votes properly, and they didn't get agreements either. You can do it that way. The board simply went on their own, and they took control. And there was one board member in this particular situation that didn't like this owner for whatever reason, and told them they couldn't put. I think we talked about this in the last case a little bit in our last show.
That ramp
wouldn't let them put a 15-foot flat, extension to the side of their house so that the mother, so there wasn't ramps. It was flat. Wouldn't let them go forward with it. I mean, that's just absurd.
Yeah.
And so the only way they had the top lawyers, the way to argue it was the amendment was improper. And so the amendment doesn't apply. Then there's no deed restriction violation because this is not what the community wanted. And that's absurd.
Yes.
The whole thing was absurd. Okay, so a very dangerous Texas law allows creation of new deed restrictions, bylaws, and rules without the consent of all the owners, even without any voice at all by the owners. And now I think they've tried to protect that law, but it's still got some holes in it, a lot of holes in it. So it's a double-edged sword. The law really doesn't apply, even though it can be used, but you can poke holes in it depending on which side you're on, whether you want the amendment or you don't. So I say the best thing to do is go back to the original intent, the legislative intent, if you need to go that far with it to determine, and most importantly, what the community wants in order before you go forward. Creating rules to retain, to preserve power of office. I mean, that sounds like kind of the
good night.
That sounds like
dictatorship.
Dictatorship. Executing agreements that bind the owners forever and for many years. For an example, a perpetual agreement without majority approval. It's one thing to get a majority approval. It's another thing when you have a faux majority approval by some board members that say they were for them and they're moving forward and you're stuck with the stuff. Obligating all owners to pay dues for a swim club when they don't use the swim club. I mean, that kind of thing.
Right.
Demanding new easement concessions as a condition for any services. Where that goes right back to easements are statutory. You can't they have some rights with the easements, but the homeowner association has to grant it to, in many situations, to the county because the county doesn't have it. So, they're working with the county. So you got to be really careful about it. Your homeowners association has a lot of power with these things. Easements can be created by the dedicatory instrument, but once it's there, changing that easement, it's not just they're going to come in, they're going to condemn it, they're going to get what they want. No. You fight, you bond, you get together, you make some noise.
That's right.
You can stop it. Or if you want the easement, you can get it. But you got to it's got to be reasonable. You can't be selfish. You need all those, the law things that we learn in church. They apply in real life and in business contracts too, because that's really the heart of how you determine things, what's reasonable and what's fair.
But in what you just read, the homeowners association is saying, okay, give us this, or we're not going to provide services
Right.
when they're there to do the services.
Right,
And that's what
right.
the
homeowners
fees are
association
for.
can't do that. That's completely
Yeah.
improper. There's no statute that allows them to do that. It would be void. In
Right.
fact, Texas Property Code 209 has provisions that will void that type of provision.
Okay.
In fact, a lot of people don't know this, but if you are behind on your fees, or if you, let's see, I think it's when you're behind on your fees, or if you're not in good standing for one reason or another,
Mhm.
you still the law is that you can still vote. You still can vote. A lot of the bylaws and a lot of the covenants, and obviously covenants, bylaws, govern how you're going to do it. This protocol and the bylaws tell you what you can and can't do. But they will have a provision in there saying that if an owner is behind on their assessments or is not in good standing, they can't vote. The Texas Property Code and the statutes of Texas now say that's simply void ab initio. That
Good.
provision, if you're behind on your fees, because you may have an argument about what the fees are.
That's right.
You still get to stand up and vote because the homeowners association can make everybody behind
Yeah.
so they can't vote.
Yeah.
So they can't do that. Unfair tactics to eliminate opposition is a big one. Refusing disclosure of documents, believe it or not. We have all these
refusing
laws.
to disclose
Documents, yes. Texas law requires HOAs to comply with the open records request, determine whether your HOA and its management companies are complying with the law, and they are refused requests or use delaying tactics that effectively negate the open records requirement. It doesn't cost that much money for them to open your books, but you're not asking for copies. You can arrange something with them to be able to see it, because if you don't know what they're doing, how do you know
Right.
what your rights are? They could be doing everything perfectly fine,
Mhm.
but wouldn't it be good if you were informed? I mean, you live there, you're subject to these rules. A lot of people don't know the law in the state of Texas any more than they know their homeowners association laws. These are things that you really should, if you've got just a little time, put some effort forth learning.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Tony, we're going to go to a break. This will be our last break. And when we come back, we're going to wrap up our discussion on homeowners association. So we'll be right back after the break.
Lone Star Community Radio is looking for those who are interested in hosting their own talk show, with monthly and weekly slots available on Conroe's FM 104.5, 106.1, and on irlonestar.com. Start your own podcast, create your first YouTube channel, and be on TV. Contact Lone Star Community Radio online at irlonestar.com or call the station message line at 936-647-3776.
Path to the Plate is a research-based education program that helps consumers understand how their food choices impact their health by making the connection to agriculture. Learning about how food is grown and produced, and how consumers can make better food choices for themselves and their families, Path to the Plate is all about dispelling myths and misconceptions. Find out more online at pathtotheplate.tamu.edu. We are Texas A&M AgriLife Extension, helping Texans make their lives better.
Listen in Mondays at noon to hear Conroe news from local nonprofits, businesses, upcoming events, Conroe Park events, news stories, and information that matters to you with your host, Margie Taylor of Taylorized PR. For more information about being a guest, visit irlonestar.com/Conroe Culture.
Welcome back to the Legal Connection with Tony and Cheryl. Tony and I are here talking about homeowners associations. And Tony, you were just telling us about things that we need to be aware of. And
Yeah, and what we were talking about on the break a little bit is, I mean, I've been a member of a homeowners association board, and I never wanted anybody to think poorly of me. I just wanted everyone to like me. It's a volunteer position. I didn't need anything, and but so people always go into these positions with really good intentions, and a lot of times it works out beautifully because they have good
Right.
intentions, and it's like a well oiled wheel
Machine.
or grease wheel or whatever the terminology is, guy thing. So, and it can run smoothly, but sometimes it can get out of control because it's like a jury. If you've got 12 people and they're board members, not that you'd have that big of a board, and you've got a very strong-minded people on one side and maybe some people that just don't want to make a fuss because they're trying to be people pleasers for the community and the board that don't go along with it, it can get out of hand, and that's why a lot of people they don't want to be on the board anymore because they've determined that they don't believe that their neighbors are not complying with restrictions, or they do believe that the bylaws aren't being followed, and they just eventually don't want to be on the board. They don't want to be because they're being kind of bullied, like 12 Angry Men. You know, if you've seen the movie, there'll be one or two people that really are. If it's on my way or the highway, and then, but if you work together, if you really do things that are just and right, I guess pray about it, and you're reasonable, and you get the pulse of the community on what it needs to be done, then it will all work out. The bottom line is what the community desires, as long as it's reasonable.
Right.
And there's some things that you'll have some people fighting about what's reasonable, but the community desires, even if it wasn't reasonable, would still be, but should be okay. If your community said, I want to put the Eiffel Tower right in the center of our community, and they could afford it, and 80% of them want to do it, then your community should have the Eiffel Tower in the middle of their community.
That's
period.
right.
That's the way it is. That may not be reasonable, but to that community, it was reasonable. So
That's
it's all
right.
relative. So that's not for the board to decide.
Right.
You know, they're not the DeSapo. They can only get the pulse of the community. Now, we just talked about this, denying the right to vote. Texas law currently permits an HOA to deny owners the right to vote. Now, this is old because they cannot deny owners the right to vote. So I'm reading this knowing that this law has changed. It's a dangerous power. And in 2011, I know that was when the first legislation came in saying that no matter what, you can vote. There's going to be very few things short of being a felon or, you know, there's very few things that are, in fact, I don't think there's anything according to the Texas Property Code 209.005, I think it's 5.6, but it's 05. It's when that genre of the section. It's void if it doesn't allow you to vote. And I'd have to look at it again, so don't hold me to that exactly, but I'm pretty sure that you can vote no matter what. So don't let your homeowners association say you can't vote, because you can. That's the only way you'll be heard. Vendettas and harassment. Harassing phone calls. We have heard from more than one owner who have received harassing phone calls after appearing at a board meeting or voicing a complaint.
Oh, gosh.
Harassing and violation letters. Often owners who oppose the board or the management company soon find themselves the recipient of numerous violation letters, not just to them, but to the whole community, because it can get kind of bad, it can get kind of nasty. So that's also a problem you could experience. So if that does happen, you're not alone. But the people that receive it, I think the homeowners community kind of can see through it for the most part if that's happening. So so all is not lost. The people are reasonable when they're informed. That's why you have to inform them. Some helpful arguments. In developing a persuasive position, you must be attentive to the unique facts of your situation. However, the following may be of help to you. Deed restrictions enforcement are often helpful and positive for the neighborhood. So be careful about responding to an argument such as any argument without investigating the facts and your deed restrictions, because you could speak out of turn. Information is power. That's why you request the information from your homeowners association. That's why you go read it.
Don't
and
be
if you
shy.
question it, you can ask an attorney. You can even call our show or whatever, and we can help you interpret it. And or Facebook us. The question you want to ask is the homeowner association charging more than is reasonably necessary for the services they provide?
Yes.
They may be. They don't need a surplus.
Yeah.
They don't need the best, person mowing the lawn out there or whatever. They just may not need that money. You might be able to argue for your community to reduce that fee. Are the fees different from section to section? They shouldn't be, unless one section has a benefit over the other. And I think we talked about this on one of our shows. If it's commercial versus residential, and the commercial doesn't get the benefit of what the residential is getting, then, and there's no other benefit, their fees being higher for commercial, then why should commercial have more if they're not hurting the neighborhood? Same kind of thing. Can the homeowners association meet its expenses without foreclosing? We just talked about that. Foreclosing should be the very last thing you do. They're not going to get any money out of that house. It's just heartache for that homeowner.
Right.
Unless they're intentionally doing something bad, which people just don't do that. They'd rather move.
Right.
I say that. There's probably the exception to the rule that I don't know about. What percent of owners are not paying their dues? Look at your homeowners association. Just find out what the percentage is. How much cash does the homeowners association have? It will be in the open records. Also, with respect to foreclosure, consider the following arguments. The doctor who saves your life cannot foreclose on your home to obtain a payment.
Yeah, no kidding.
The doctor provides a much more valuable service than an HOA. If you run up a $10,000 bill at American Express cannot foreclose on your home to recoup the money.
Yeah.
How much money does the HOA actually get from a foreclosure? Often the only persons who profit are the attorneys and the purchaser of the home at auction, which may be another homeowner in the association,
Right.
or the developer next door,
Right.
that just wants to get involved to enhance their own property. The net effect may be detrimental to the homeowners association at the neighborhood. The home may actually become an eyesore if abandoned.
Mm-hmm.
Will the taxing authority, MUD, or the school districts foreclose if the homeowners association does not? Will the claims preempt a claim or recovery by the homeowners association? These are questions that you want to ask. Homeowners associations often claim that their actions are necessary to maintain property values. Hear this over and over again. To counter these arguments, look at the HOAdata.org. That's one organization online you can look at. Go to HoustonAssociationOfRealtors.com.
Mhm.
They have a whole section on that talk about the same things that I was just talking about. Houston Chronicle Business section. Talk about homeowners and questions by homeowners in one of their free attorney sections all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Informational sources are the records for your homeowner, court records, county records, your neighbors, and internet sources. And most importantly, I think you're the records of your HOA. Find out what's going on out there.
Right.
Now, what I wanted to address just briefly is what you can do. If you get sued by your homeowners association or another owner, and there is a case that just came out 3 weeks ago where a homeowner sued a homeowner. The association didn't want to get involved.
A neighbor sued a
Yeah,
neighbor.
a neighbor sued a neighbor.
Okay.
And the original neighbor that got sued really was not in compliance. But the homeowners association, being a good homeowners association, went to this neighbor and said, we're going to come check it out. We want to see what's going on. And let me see what the case name is. It just came out. I had a copy of it. It's called Severs versus Mira Vista Homeowners Association. And this opinion just came out September 6, 2018. And but what happened was owner one decided they wanted to put a deck on top of their their property. They had a little deck in the back,
Mhm.
and they wanted to put a 2-story deck and some lawn chairs and stuff up. Well,
Mhm.
one of the homeowners, and rightfully so, this would have affected his view. He could see it from over his fence, and he was like, "No, you don't have a variance. You can't do it." Well, what happened was homeowner one had already got they'd already had a variance before. They grandfathered in, but they couldn't now use that same variance to improve upon it. It was just for the one that was there.
Right.
And so the homeowners association said, you're in violation. You need to ask for a variance because it's a specific problem to you and this neighbor. Nobody else is affected by it. They looked at it. They fined the builder because the builder should have looked at that first. And so that the owner that was in jeopardy didn't have any cost to them. And the homeowner didn't have any, the homeowner association didn't hire an attorney to do any of this.
Mm-hmm.
They got the money back from the builder with a fine. The homeowners got their variance when they complied with what was asked for by the homeowners association. And it should have been done because they got the variance because they complied with what the homeowners variance architectural committee thought was proper. Now, the architectural committee reports to the board too, in many homeowners associations. So you can appeal if you don't get it, right?
Mhm.
So you'll have a lot of reasonable minds looking at this, and they're actually going out like they should, even though they're volunteers. They want to keep everybody happy, and plus they're kind of nosy, I think, too. They want to go do it. The second homeowner, though, didn't take that.
Yeah.
He sued the other owner because he said, no, you weren't in compliance. You should never have done this, and you're taking away my view, and I'm upset by this, and I want it to stop. Well, basically what happened was the homeowners association, he sued the owner, and then he sued the homeowners association. The owner originally that had the double-decker deck ended up winning the case because the homeowners association gave him the variance.
Oh, okay.
And the other owner ended up having to pay all the attorney's fees for the homeowners association and the owner because they didn't prevail because they were being unreasonable.
Yeah.
And it was bad. But basically, if two owners get in a spat and it's just one variance that's needed, then it's presumed that the homeowners association is reasonable, and they have no fear that they're going to get in a fight with everybody if they just get the variance.
Okay, guys, thanks for listening. Serve God by serving others.
Yes,
And
thank
we
you.
will see you next week.